of life, whether it is joining here on campus in an environmental organization or a human rights organization that you've never been to one of these meetings and it's kind of scary. I would say, from my life experience, that whenever I'm willing to take that risk, to try something new that aligns me more and more with the world I want, I feel more powerful. And that is what we need now more than ever. Because, as I say, the solutions are all around us. And as I think then of what gives me courage, there's a certain kind of humility that I think we need to cultivate. And it gets a lot easier when you get to be old like me. But the idea of this humility is really powerful. And it is that over time I realized that things that most excite me, that most inspire me, are things I wouldn't have given much of a chance of success at all when I was your age of the students in this audience. And so if that's true, that's very humbling. I was so wrong, but it means I could be wrong again. So keep a checklist, maybe a literal one. I keep it in my head, a checklist of things that so excite me and empower me that I would have said, no chance that that's going to happen, and it happened. For example, how many of you have heard of Plant for the Planet? Plant for the Planet. I didn't hear of it until I was in a Leipzig, Germany high school. Well, UN Environmental Program started this Plant for the Planet in 2007 with the goal of 1 billion trees planted throughout the world each year for the next several years. I think their goal was 7 billion, but it was 1 billion a year. And I read about this a few years ago and I thought, oh, well, that's nice. I really wish them well, but I thought that was incredibly ambitious and they were going to be so disappointed, but I didn't want to say it to myself. Well, I went back and checked recently, and do you know what the total is today? It is 11 billion trees. And do you know what country is the superstar? Ethiopia. Ethiopia's tree cover had gone from something down to, well, about 3%. I mean, just huge deforestation. And they got together, and you know who the heroes within Ethiopia are? The Ethiopian Boy Scouts, right? So would I have thought that possible? When I was writing Food First in 1977, the country in the world I thought the least likely ever to have effective land reform, because a tiny percent of the population controlled most of the land. But they developed a new constitution in 1988, which required the government to make sure that land used a social purpose. So all this unused land held by the big latifundistas couldn't hold anymore. And today, through a popular social movement, the largest social movement in this hemisphere, about 1/3 of 1 million families are creating new communities, new schools, new organic farms on about 20 million acres of land in Brazil. Part of this movement that is reducing poverty and hunger. I would have given that almost no chance of success when I was in my 30s. So here is what I want to leave you with then, that if we develop that kind of humility and this EcoMind, which is all about understanding the nature of nature is change. The nature of nature is that we're all co-creating everything moment to moment. The only choice we do not have is whether to change the world. In an EcoMind, the only choice we don't have is whether to change the world, because everything we're doing and everything we're not doing is changing the world. If we don't take a conscious act, it doesn't mean we don't have impact. We still have impact, but we're not moving in the world we want. So if we really think through an EcoMind and see ourselves in this human and the wider ecosystem, then we realize it is not possible to know what's possible. If it's not possible to know what's possible, then we are free. We are absolutely free to go, to follow our curiosity, to keep asking the why, as Jesse Kuhl said. You keep asking the why. That's what the EcoMind really does. Why? And historian Theodore Zeldin said, curiosity is the greatest antidote to fear. So find your question. Find your question. That, when I was writing Diet for a Small Planet, I didn't think of myself as a writer. I made a D on my first English paper in college, but I had a question. So with our, let me just sum it up, I guess, to say, with our EcoMinds enabling us to listen to the real questions of why. Why are we trapped in this world that none of us as individuals would want? What can I do right now to help me reframe possibility, to realize it's not possible, to know what's possible? So I would like to end with a brief poem by one of my favorite poets who says everything that I'm trying to say, but much more briefly and beautifully. It's a poem called Beginners, and in a sense, we're all beginners trying to ask these square one questions. Denise Levertov. We have only begun to love the earth. We have only begun to imagine the fullness of life. How can we tire of hope? So much is in bud. How can desire fail? We've only begun to imagine justice and mercy. We've only begun to envision how it might be to live as siblings with beast and flower, no longer as oppressor. We've only begun to know the power that is ours if we would join our solitudes in a communion of struggle. So much is unfolding that must complete its gesture. So much is in bud. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.